Welcome to Exploring Possibilities. I'm your host, Cheryl Sitz. Since 2012, Mario Rosales of Tech Life Balance and I have been airing inspiring, insightful conversations with all kinds of change agents who are raising the vibration on our planet. It's the intention of this show to, explore possibilities and shift perspectives in holistic spiritual ways. You'll hear how these experts discover and share their deepest passions to make a bigger difference in the world. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play. And please rate the show so other people can find us too. We'll introduce today's guest in just a moment.
Have you ever gone to a social media seminar and you have the online experts telling you, get a blog, get a website, get on social media, all this other stuff? By the time you're done with that seminar, that online expert is very good at frying your brain. And the funny part is, you come back home, you get in front of the computer, and you're lost. Hi, I am Mario with Tech Life Balance. I see this all the time. You spend so much money and still don't know what is going on with your online presence. And you probably don't need all of that. Let me go ahead and translate Geek to English for you and show you what you really need, because you don't need it all. You probably only need a few components. You have a great message out there, and I would like to hear it, and I definitely want to help you put it out there. I am Mario Rosales with TechLifeBalance.net. I produce this podcast because I love distributing messages. Let me help you distribute your message.
Who are you? Why are you here? What wonders and opportunities await you beyond physical death? What happened millennia ago to create the damaged earth and fractured societies you see around you? Empowering, enlightening, internationally acclaimed, the Joseph Communications books offer answers to these questions. Spiritual, concise, contemporary, non-denominational, the communications originate from Joseph, a highly evolved discarnate spirit concerned for you and the future of the planet and its peoples. The words of Joseph and his soul group give you the power to bring light and change into your own life and the lives of others, and to restore the earth. Available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats, the communications can be ordered today at www.thejosephcommunications.com, and also from Amazon and other major booksellers. All proceeds are used for further publishing and advertising, and to make the communications available worldwide.
We are looking for advertisers for 2018, so keep us in mind when you're putting together your ad budget. In fact, contact us now so you can find out rates and we can put together a special package for you. Just drop an email to info@journeyofpossibilities.com. Today's guest was introduced to me by someone I met through social media who's a fellow Texan, Ruth Glendenning, and she connected us so that we could discuss a fabulous film. Mandar Apte is an educator, innovator, and impact investor. Until 2016, he managed Shell's flagship Game Changer program on social innovation. He's an award-winning social entrepreneur who believes in nourishing innovation through mindfulness. Mandar has taught thousands to meditate and is senior faculty for meditation-based leadership development programs offered through the Art of Living Foundation and the International Association for Human Values. Both organizations offer special consultation for the UN. He's co-founder of Media Rise, a nonprofit inspiring the creation and consumption of meaningful media to accelerate social change. This mission led him to create a documentary film, which is called From India with Love, which actually attracted my attention and is the reason for this. You can find that online at FromIndiaWithLove.org. Welcome, Mandar.
Thank you. Such a beautiful day and such a beautiful weather to speak with you.
Well, we're so delighted you had the time to visit with us. I would love to hear a little bit about what prompted your transition from doing the already impactful work that you were doing at Shell to branching off on your own in this direction.
I was at Shell for 17 years, and last year I had a key moment of truth when I was watching the news, the whole election process that was going on. And it hit me that until an act of violence happens in my life, I may not do anything about it. So that's where I felt a calling to start, I would say, reimagining how do we reinvigorate non-violence in our country. Violence was not just limited to gun violence in my frame of mind. It was bullying in schools, drugs and gangs, domestic abuse. So, how do we change the conversation and the narrative to love, peace, compassion, non-violence? And while researching some of the Gandhi and King literature, I came across Dr. Martin Luther King's journey to India, and I was not aware of that. I have been born and brought up in India, but I was not aware of the fact that Martin Luther King took a 5 week trip. And as a busy executive, I would think nobody goes anywhere for 5 weeks. So, as I was reading his book, there's a chapter of about 30 pages that says Pilgrimage to India. And that made a profound impact on me because Mahatma Gandhi had already died when Dr. King went. So that means that, something had happened in India that made him a student and follower of Gandhi's teachings. And so that is where I felt, that is the social hypothesis, is that it was the travel in India, it was meeting with the people of India and exposing himself to the culture of India for 5 weeks that had made a impact on his leadership style. And so if 60 years later, can that journey in India also inspire America today to go back to the roots of nonviolence?
That's so interesting. I had no idea that Martin Luther King had been over there either. I didn't know about that. So did it say in that segment what it was about that trip that inspired him?
It's a long 30-page chapter. The highlight of that chapter is that he says he has now realized that non-violence is the only way, otherwise it will lead to non-existence. And I also found an NPR clip where some of the archival audio footage is portrayed, where they actually Dr. King spoke to All India Radio, to the people of India, on his, I think, last day before he went back to the United States. So with reading the book and reading, he says in the book, he says his commitment to nonviolence is much deeper as a result of the trip. And this audio footage where I heard his speech. I then went to a civil rights leader in Houston. His name is Reverend Bill Lawson. And I have taught meditation in Reverend Lawson's school in the inner city in Houston. So he has been my mentor over the last decade. So I went to his home and I asked him, did he see a change in the leadership style of Dr. King before and after the India trip? And then I was just amazed at so many stories that Reverend Lawson told me about Dr. King. And that was, I would say, the impetus for me to recreate a similar journey. That's how the film got conceived. And within 1 month of having that, you can say, story in my mind, I had finished the production of the film. So I had not only reached out to about 30 victims of violence, I had influenced 6 of them. They chose to come with me. I had found the funds to pay for their trip. I had found a filmmaker. I had hosted them in India for 10 days. And 1 month after I had the initial thought, everything was done. So that was, I would say, a miracle, providence or grace or whatever you call it.
That's fantastic. And you've never done a film before, right? This was like your first time to go through this experience.
Yes, I'm a petroleum engineer by training. And so I think that was one reason why I was able to do this at such, I would say, such a pace, is because I didn't need to follow any of the rules that people in that industry may have set on themselves. I remember very clearly that when I was looking for a producer, director, filmmaker, shooter in India, one of the very successful filmmakers, she said, "Do you have a script?" And I said, "I don't have a script. It will be free flow, and cameras will just follow the characters, and maybe there will be no transformation at the end of the 10 days." So then she asked me, "Okay, have you done casting?" And very, very confidently, I told her, "Yes, I have." And, Cheryl, I haven't told many people, but the idea of making this film came to me when I was actually in India. So all my interviews, all my outreach to victims of violence was on Skype and FaceTime calls. So when I told her that that was my casting, she said, "That's not how it works. You have to make sure that people that are coming are good on camera, and they follow some audition." I said, that's your way of thinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this anyway, my way, and these are the people who have chosen to come. So my initial thought was not 6 people. My initial thought was, let's just take 2 or 3, because the transformative experience is a question mark. But what had happened is, in those 10 days that I was scampering and hustling and talking to so many people, that in 10 days these 6 people said yes, that they would come. So then I said, why should I say no? If their karma is to come to India, why should I say no? So out of that Providence faith, I sponsored their trip, and sponsored the 10-day journey. And yeah, that's how it was just flow, because I was not following preset rules.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And definitely not our norm these days. We're so used to wanting to have it all planned out and thought out, and that's beautiful. Talk about in the moment. That's lovely. Well, let me ask you, so what particular aspect of violence was your biggest trigger? You said you were kind of watching the news and seeing the violence. Which particular kind of violence was your biggest trigger? And then what have you learned about violence overall through this process?
I wouldn't say one trigger, because I have lived in the United States for the last 20 years, and especially over the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen violence almost every day, every hour in some cities perhaps. So we have seen shooting on the streets, we have seen suicides, veteran suicides, we have seen bullying in schools. We have seen the opioid violence. So there was no one violence. I think it was just a realization that there's a lot of violence, and it can happen anywhere at any time. It can happen at a bar, it already happened. It can happen at an airport, already happened. At a school, already happened. So that was my realization, that, man, as a frequent traveler, it can happen anywhere. And unless it happens to me, I won't perhaps do anything about it. So that's where the aha was for me, that, hey, let me see what I can do. And that's the whole journey that led me to, nonviolence is the method, and it's a sustainable method. Eye for an eye cannot be sustainable.
Yeah.
And then you have to reimagine, what is nonviolence today. It probably is not sitting on a fast like Mahatma Gandhi used to sit.
Mm-hmm.
It probably is not, a bus boycott like what Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement did. So we have to revive and reimagine what is nonviolence in action. And then we can't tell people what they should do. So it should come from, an inspired state of mind. And that is where I would say my key moment of insight was, non-violence in Sanskrit the word is called ahimsa, ahimsa. So if you break down that word, himsa means violence, ahimsa means lack of violence, which then means lack of violence in thinking, lack of violence in speech, and lack of violence in action. So that's where I think we need to now go back and study the roots of where does nonviolence and ahimsa originate, and More importantly, how do we achieve that state of mind, that consciousness, where you don't have the time to think negative thoughts, you don't have the time to speak bad things. And I think that's where we look at nonviolence as loving yourself, so self-care and self-compassion, and a manifestation of that is loving others around you, just like you would love your family and friends. Otherwise, we are not showing the same love to people who are not belonging to us. So a state of non-violence would be unconditional love, I would say. But it starts with self-love. Otherwise, you cannot love others if you don't love yourself.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I know that from doing research into what people are searching on Google and so forth, and from conversations that I have each week on this show, self-love is a big thing that we're missing right now, and self-care. And so it would almost seem that until we get that piece figured out, nonviolence is more of a dream, isn't it, for our modern society? How do we get there if we aren't loving ourselves, and if all of this is festering, this anger and stuff inside of us?
Yes, and I would say there is no silver bullet for this. Everybody has to find their own way. For some, it could be meditation practice. For some, it could be taking a swim. For some, it could be gardening. For some, it could be as simple as having an ice cream.
Right.
So I think we just need to take a pause and let not our activities and our calendars and our Twitter feeds, let not them rule our life. I think that's the first step. And second is find a way to connect with yourself so that you feel nourished. Just like, when we sleep at night, only after a good night's sleep do we feel happy and nourished and ready to take on the world. If we don't have a good night's sleep, then we are groggy and complaining and dull. I would say finding a way to get nourished and just having a bit of calm and pause and just the ability to let go. That's what we need to learn. And meditation is a very simple and a very effective way that has worked for millions of people. Today, we live in a world where, we are eating Chinese food, but we are not Chinese. We are using technology that our Apple iPhones and iPads are not made in our country, but we are using them. So it's realizing that we are open to accepting food, music, technology from different parts of the world. Why not have that open mind to also accept wisdom from different parts of the world? Otherwise, we will be at a loss. And so the wisdom of, how to handle your mind, you can say currently is associated with Eastern philosophies, but there is no East or West. It's just one world. And we should just feel that, hey, it belongs to me. I'm going to try it out.
That was just a gem right there. If we can accept food from other cultures and business from other cultures, why not their wisdom? I completely agree with you. And it's interesting, in my own personal journey, it was a young woman from India that introduced me to Vipassana and 10-day meditation. And I went and did that retreat. And it was the first time in my life I spent 10 days in complete silence, complete stillness. And as an average American, it about drove me crazy. And then once I got past that wall, it was the most profound experience. And I was hypersensitive to everything when I left there. We don't realize how distracted and busy we get in this modern world. And so I love that some of these gems from your culture are already coming over here and in place over here. There is Vipassana in the United States, and there are meditation practices popping up all over the place just to slow down. I find it interesting that you come from a corporate environment where you definitely had to be busy. I mean, large corporation like Shell, you had to be busy with technology, busy with your life. Did that give you any insight in creating this work now to reach those people who are busy in that world and help them slow down?
I would say everything in life prepares you to take the next step. So that's true for everybody. And absolutely, it's true for me. So I spent 17 years in this small oil company called Shell. Went through my own challenges because it's not easy to deal with people around you who perhaps don't look like you, don't behave like you, don't have your values. It creates a lot of friction. But in the corporate setting, I would say my biggest pivot was when I joined a practice in Shell called Game Changer. That happens to be a innovation practice at Shell, and it's an internal incubator program. So while I was managing this practice, which was my last job at Shell, to manage the Game Changer program for social innovations, you do build up your skills in terms of change making from inside a large organization, and those skills definitely have helped me in reframing and rethinking what I'm doing now. No doubt about it. While I was at Shell, I also integrated my, you can say, Eastern wisdom and created a innovation learning program using meditation techniques, because the belief is silence is the mother of creativity. So if you want your organizations to be more creative and innovative, you need to give the people that work for your organization the tools, wisdom that will get them to that silent corner of their mind. And second thought is that innovation also is a people game. It's a very social game. It's not just about new technologies. There's a number of roles that come into play to bring that technology to life, and those are all social roles. So if you want your organizations to have a thriving innovation culture, you need to have the people in your organization inspired to play a role. And inspiration is all coming from within. So encouraging people to bring their passion at work, that could be a way to reinvigorate the culture at work. So my experience at Shell, I taught about 2,000 employees at Shell how to meditate while I was still there. And I taught refinery operators, I taught senior managers in maybe 10 countries. So that gives you the confidence that, okay, what you are teaching is useful, and it creates a happy human being that is the basis of a happy work culture. So I'm now applying the same as I'm building this From India with Love initiative. I'm going and discussing with chiefs of police. I'm meeting with mayors that policing is not a very easy job. So you need to give the police officers tools to handle their stress, and that is where meditation practice helps. So I am absolutely, coming back to your question, using absolutely everything I've learned in my 17-year corporate career, and everything else that my parents, my friends, my meditation guru, everywhere that I have gone, I've learned, and I'm definitely now using that in the program that I'm doing now.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how you wandered back to the movie. I'm curious about the groups that you're reaching with the film and where you plan to go next. And have you worked at all with the prison system?
For the film, I would say, lucky, because I got a sketch of 6 very different people that have gone through different types of violence in their life. One was a single mother from the Sandy Hook school massacre that happened. She lost her 6-year-old boy in that shooting. Very unfortunate. No parent should ever even think about such thing. On the other hand, I had also a former gang member from a Mexican gang in LA. Again, perpetuator of violence, but in the heart of heart, a very sweet human being. Then I had activists for the Black Lives Matter movement who are, I would say, championing, advocating the cause of racial violence, social injustice. So these are different domains of violence, and I just felt honored to spend time with them 10 days. And the film talks about their story of how they found healing and solace and a new way of looking at the world through this immersive journey in India with a meditation teacher called Mandar. It was very transformative, not only for these 6 people, but also for me. I had never imagined 21 years ago when I came to the United States for my graduate school that I would actually end up doing something like this. Since that film, the first trip where I took these 6 individuals, I then started thinking, let's approach the leadership, the civic leadership, people like mayors and police officers who are concerned about violence, and then I took them on the trip. So I've taken now total 3 trips that have included social activists, former gang members, police officers, mayors, victims of violence. And now I'm sitting back. I'm taking a step back, and I have come to realize that the immersion in India does create a very powerful transformative experience for whoever is ready. But the real work is not in India. The real work is after the trip, back in the home and the communities that we live here in the United States. So I am now reaching out to mayors to send a delegation from their city. That way, these people who will go will be in one place after they come back, and they can bring some cross sector solutions through deepening of their own bonds within the travel in India. So anybody who's listening, if they are working in the sector of public health, if they are working in any mayor's office, if they are working in any organization that is looking at violence prevention, please reach out, because this is not my endeavor. I've just started something, but I cannot do this alone. And there is a lot of pain and suffering and violence. That is, I would say, we have to come together to show how we can enable communities to bring more peace and love and compassion. Regards to your question, Cheryl, about prison system, I have come across some groups that are definitely working on bringing meditation in the prisons. I have not yet done it myself, but one of my very dear friends, her name is Gabriela. She is full-time dedicated in bringing the knowledge of meditation and yoga in the prison systems in the United States. So her program is called Prison Smart, and the website for that is prisonsmart.org. She would be a much better person to speak with about prison and the stress in the prisons. And I have not yet looked into that aspect personally myself.
Well, I love the areas that you are working in, and that only comes up for me because I've visited within the prison system here in Texas, and there is a desire for meditations in the Texas prisons, and I'm sure in other prisons. So I was curious if you had any involvement with that. So tell me a little bit more about where you think this is going to go, how this is going to work when it's kind of, if I'm understanding you right, it's kind of a limited exposure in that they go to India. So it's the people that go with you and then come back and bring their transformation forward. How do you see this spreading throughout the community on a larger scale?
Good question again. I don't have the golden answer. The answer, we will have to figure it out. However, the film is now traveling across the country. So if anybody is interested in hosting a screening of the film, that creates the first conversations about nonviolence and compassion. And through those conversations, I think we can create like-minded coalitions of people who are working on different aspects of violence, different types of violence. And the hope is just like what happened in Chicago a few weeks ago. The film was screened in the inner city, in the Englewood south side of Chicago neighborhood. I was honored to be there during the screening. The community loved it. There was a woman who runs a yoga peace house in the south side of Chicago, and she invited me to lead a session for her community. And 30 people showed up that evening. So we had, she told me that in the room there were current gang members, former gang members, police officers, community policing, mothers who have lost their children in the gang war. And they had an amazing experience in the 2 hours that I was there teaching them yoga and breathing exercises and meditation practice. And I was so honored that the reason I quit my job is to take the wisdom of yoga and meditation that has helped me to communities that really need it the most. And I could not agree more with you that prison systems would definitely be a place where this, I would say, inner peace would be most of use. And so the hope is people who watch the film will get inspired to bring this program to reimagine nonviolence in their communities and drive it from there. So I think that's the hope, is that if we take a delegation of concerned citizens from a community slash city and they immerse in India, and that's where I will definitely be of help. I will guarantee that people will come back inspired, no doubt about it. But actually, the work is back home. So it's very important for me, as I'm thinking about the next steps, is to take people who are really concerned about violence and they will commit to trying new things in their communities when they come back. So scaling, I think it's too early to start thinking about scaling. But down the road, I would also urge my Indian American friends, because 60 years ago when Dr. King went to India, there was no Indian community in America. But today, every city has an Indian American corner. They are selling food, they are selling clothes, they are watching Bollywood films. So that Indian American community needs to be ignited, inspired to also participate in activities that promote compassion and nonviolence, not only in your community, but now we need to be ambassadors of the culture of peace and the the Gandhian philosophy of nonviolence. We have to now act as ambassadors and share it with the community we live in. And why? Because the act of violence can happen in our child's school, in our neighborhood school, or in an airport where we are traveling, or in a Starbucks where we are sitting. So I think that would play a big role in scaling, is wake up the Indian American community here to also play a role, because not everybody will be able to go to India. So we will have to bring India to America. Does that make sense, Cheryl?
Absolutely. You've expressed it so well. Yes, absolutely. I love your vision. And it just warms my heart to know that you are doing this work and making such a big difference for many people and ultimately for all of us. Because, whether it's India or America, what happens to one affects us all. So the better we can get our heads around nonviolence and realizing that violence only begets more violence down the road, it's not the way to go. I absolutely agree with you.
I just had a conversation with one of the delegates who went with me earlier this year. He's a 6 foot tall, 25-year in the police, Lieutenant Jim Evenson of Rochester Police Department. And I was asking Jim, hey, what do you think of so many acts of violence that have just happened this month? And one of the realizations we both had was, because they are happening so frequently, we have forgotten that, hey, Las Vegas just happened not even 6 weeks ago. And then we had Texas, and God knows how many other events never got into mainstream media.
Yeah.
So Jim was saying, what's the solution? And he said, well, perhaps it is lighting the fire of hope and inner peace, and compassion. And I said, that's it. That's it. We have to take care of the victim of violence, of all these horrendous events that have happened. Otherwise, we are moving on, right? We are moving on. But the person who has become a victim of violence, somebody needs to take care of them. Somebody needs to hold their hand, give them a hug. I think that's the least we could do. But as we are now, I would say, a global village, everybody is traveling, everybody is exposed to Facebook and YouTubes. We cannot but sit idle, and we are letting violence, it's become we are numb to it. We move on to the next story and the next story. That's where I think the pause will help. That's where a little bit of pause will help. In every family, there is violence in every family as well. Sometimes, we are stressed out at work and we pass on the stress at home, and the kids get affected. So we really have to integrate some of this pause mechanism in our life.
I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to ask you before we conclude if you have anything coming up in particular that you'd like us to be aware of as far as events or dates.
I am taking my 4th delegation to India. Absolutely anybody is welcome to join, especially if you feel inspired by what you have just heard. There are trailers of the film. There are testimonials of police officers that have gone with me. They're all on the website, FromIndiaWithLove.org. The trip is December 24th through the 31st, so that you can also detox and rejuvenate for the year that will end and come back refreshed to start 2018 on a positive note. My film will be launched sometime early next year, I hope, on iTunes. So if you are interested in getting an email about it, you can sign up on, again, my website. There is a place you can sign up and put your email, or join us on the Facebook page. And my final request would be find a way to learn how to meditate. There's an organization that I'm part of. I'm a volunteer instructor. I've been practicing this type of meditation for 15 years, never missed a single day. It has changed my life, and give it a try. It's called the Art of Living Happiness Workshop. And it's 2-3 sessions, and you will not regret it. So just be happy, be safe, and don't forget to take care of yourself.
Well, that's a wonderful parting thought. Be happy, be safe, and don't forget to take care of yourself. I like it. Thank you so much for your time and for everything that you're doing in the world. It's just amazing, the change that you're making in the United States. And it may not look like it on the headline news today. As you say, violence seems to be increasing, but I know that you're making a difference, and you must know that you're making a difference. And so thank you for that. And again, the website is FromIndiaWithLove.org.
Thank you very much. We inspire each other. So I hope that your listeners will reach out to me, and we'll create something that I could never have imagined myself.
Would you like to be a guest on Exploring Possibilities? Drop me a note at info@journeyofpossibilities.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Exploring Possibilities.